Life is full of energies. Some are visible, like the warmth of sunlight. Others are invisible, like the peace we feel in a safe home. Salt, one of the simplest elements of nature, has carried symbolic meaning for thousands of years. It preserves, it protects, and it purifies. When we place salt in certain areas of our home, it is not magic, it is intention. The intention to cleanse, to protect, and to invite higher guidance. With awareness, even something as ordinary as salt becomes a reminder that the divine is always moving around us. Today we reflect on 5 special places where salt can be placed, not as superstition, but as a practice of mindfulness, gratitude, and openness to God's movement in our lives. In life, many things appear simple at first glance. A grain of salt is small, almost invisible in its significance when compared to the vastness of the ocean or the power of the mountain. Yet within this small crystal lies an ancient wisdom that humanity has carried through countless generations. Salt has always been a symbol of purity, of cleansing, and of preservation. When we reflect deeply on this, we begin to understand why it is so often used as a tool not only for the body but also for the spirit. When food is preserved with salt, it resists decay. When wounds are washed with salt water, they heal faster. When water from the sea touches our skin, we feel lighter, almost renewed. This is not just physical, it is energetic. In every tradition, in every culture, salt is seen as an element that absorbs what is heavy, what is stagnant, and what is impure. By its very nature, it draws out the unnecessary, so that only what is essential remains. Now think about your home. A home is not just walls, furniture, and objects. A home is a container of energy. Every word spoken, every thought carried, every emotion felt leaves a trace in the space around us. When harmony exists in the home, you feel it instantly. You step inside and peace welcomes you. But when conflict, stress, or heaviness lingers, it also becomes visible. The atmosphere feels dense, the air feels heavy, and even silence feels uneasy. This is when purification is needed. Placing salt within your home is not a matter of superstition, it is a practice of awareness. Just as we clean our rooms, wash our clothes, and bathe our bodies, we must also purify the unseen layers of our environment. Salt, in its simplicity, becomes the helper. It absorbs what does not belong, what no longer serves, what weighs down the spirit. In this way, it creates space for renewal and invites the movement of God's presence into our lives. But here is something important. The salt itself does not carry divine power. The true transformation comes from your intention. If you simply scatter salt without mindfulness, it becomes nothing more than dust on the floor. But if you place it with the awareness of cleansing, with the heart open to God's guidance, then salt becomes a reminder. A reminder that you are choosing purity. A reminder that you are opening your doors for divine energy to flow. When you hold a small bowl of salt in your hands, pause for a moment. Look at it closely. Notice its clarity, its stillness, its sharpness. Reflect on how it has come from the depths of the earth or from the vastness of the sea. It has journeyed through time, through elements, until it rests in your palm. And now it becomes part of your journey. You are no longer simply holding salt. You are holding the wisdom of nature. In Buddhism, in Taoism, and in many spiritual traditions, purification is always the first step before deeper practice. Before entering a temple, people wash their hands. Before meditation, people light incense to cleanse the space. Before prayer, people remove their shoes, wash their faces, or bow down to humble the mind. Why is this so? Because purity prepares us. A pure space leads to a pure mind. A pure mind leads to a pure heart. And a pure heart becomes the place where God can truly move. In your home, salt becomes one of the simplest ways to begin this purification. When placed in a bowl in the corner of a room, it quietly absorbs what is unseen. It does not need attention. It does not need recognition. It simply does its work in silence. And this is the teaching. Purification is not always loud. It does not always come with great rituals or ceremonies. Sometimes purification happens quietly, in the background, slowly but surely. Just like the rising of the sun, it is not rushed, yet it transforms everything it touches. As you allow salt to purify your home, you may also notice it purifying your inner state. You may feel lighter when you sit in your room, calmer when you breathe, more open when you pray. This is not an accident. It is alignment. When the outer space is clear, the inner space can reflect that clarity. When the environment carries peace, the heart remembers how to be peaceful too. But always remember, it is not enough to only rely on salt or any object. Purification must also come from within. If you place salt in every corner of your home but still fill your mind with anger, resentment, or fear, the space will never truly be light. The salt can absorb energy, but it cannot replace the work of the heart. True purification begins when you cleanse your thoughts, when you forgive, when you let go, and when you choose gratitude over complaint. Salt is simply a mirror that reminds you of this deeper truth. So when you place salt in your home, place it with intention. Whisper a prayer. Set a thought. Let this home be pure. Let this heart be pure. Let this family be protected. And may God's presence move freely here. With this awareness, you transform an ordinary act into a sacred practice. In the end, salt teaches us something profound. Purification is not about removing what is bad. It is about making space for what is good. Just as light enters when we open a window, God's blessings enter when we create space through purity. A grain of salt may seem small, but when it is placed with awareness, it becomes a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, between the seen and the unseen. And so when you hold salt in your hands, remember you are holding a reminder that life can always be made lighter, clearer, and more open to the movement of the divine. Purity is not complicated. Sometimes it begins with something as simple, as humble, and as powerful as a grain of salt. A doorway is more than just a passage of wood, metal, or stone. It is a threshold. It is the space between the inside and the outside, the known and the unknown, the safe and the unpredictable. Every time you cross a doorway, you move between two worlds. In spiritual traditions, doorways are seen as sacred boundaries. They decide what enters and what remains outside. They are the guardians of your home, and in many ways of your life. When you place salt at the doorway of your home, you are not only setting down a mineral, you are creating a boundary of intention. Salt at the threshold becomes a silent guardian, a reminder that what is heavy, what is negative, what does not belong should remain outside. What is welcome is peace, harmony, and the movement of God's blessings into your space. Why salt? Because salt has always carried the symbolism of protection. From ancient rituals to modern practices, people have scattered salt across entrances to keep away unwanted energies. Salt absorbs what is impure, and in doing so, it guards the purity of what is inside. But again, the power is not in the salt itself, it is in the awareness with which it is placed. Without awareness, salt is only a substance. With awareness, it becomes a shield of light, a reflection of your face. When you stand at your doorway with salt in your hand, pause and breathe. Look at the threshold. How many times have you crossed it? How many memories, people, and experiences have entered through this very space? Some of those brought joy, laughter, and love. Others may have carried stress, conflict, or sorrow. The doorway has witnessed everything silently, without judgment. By placing salt there, you acknowledge the sacred role of this space. You honor it, as the gatekeeper of your life's energy. In monasteries, temples, and even old villages, doorways are always treated with respect. You may notice a small bowl of water, incense, or written symbols placed near entrances. This is not decoration, it is intention. It is a way of saying, may only that which is pure enter here. Your doorway becomes more than just an opening. It becomes a threshold of protection. When salt is sprinkled or placed in a small bowl near the entrance, it silently absorbs what does not belong. Imagine someone stepping into your home carrying stress, anger, or jealousy. The salt becomes like a sponge, pulling the heaviness away before it settles into your living space. You may not see it, but you can feel it. The air feels lighter. The atmosphere remains peaceful. This is the silent work of salt. It protects by cleansing, it guards by absorbing. But remember, just as you cleanse the doorway of your home, you must also cleanse the doorway of your heart. Every day, energies knock on the threshold of your inner world. Thoughts, emotions, and influences from outside seek to enter. Some bring inspiration, joy, and compassion. Others bring worry, doubt, and fear. The question is, which ones do you allow inside? The salt at your doorway reminds you to also stand guard over your inner doorway. You decide what enters your heart. You decide what has the right to stay. In this way, the practice becomes more than physical. It becomes spiritual training. Each time you place salt by your doorway, remind yourself, may my home be protected, may my heart be guarded, may only what is pure and good cross this threshold. This simple ritual connects the outer world with the inner world. The doorway of your home becomes a reflection of the doorway of your soul. Think of a guest entering your home. When you welcome them, you open your heart, you share your space, you share your energy. But not every guest comes with good intentions. Some may come with hidden negativity, not out of malice, but simply because they carry their own burdens. By placing salt at the entrance, you do not reject them. You simply filter what enters, just as a river flows through rocks, and the rocks filter impurities, the salt filters energy, so that only peace flows into your home. There's another lesson hidden in the doorway. Every time you leave your home, you also carry your energy into the world. The salt at your doorway does not only protect what comes in, it also reminds you of the energy you bring out. Do you step outside with kindness? Do you step outside with gratitude? Do you step outside with a heart open to God's guidance? The doorway is both entrance and exit. It is both receiving and giving. To guard it with salt is to remind yourself of the balance between what you accept and what you share. Many times people look for protection in great rituals, in powerful prayers, in complex practices. But sometimes the simplest acts hold the deepest power. A small bowl of salt at your doorway can hold more meaning than 1,000 words. If placed with sincerity, it is not the size of the ritual that matters, but the purity of the heart performing it. And so when you next hold salt in your hand and walk to your doorway, do not rush. Do not scatter it without thought. Stand still. Feel the threshold beneath your feet. Whisper a quiet prayer. Invite God's presence to move in your home. Say within your heart, let this doorway be blessed. Let this home be safe. Let only love, peace, and harmony cross this threshold. In time, you may notice something changing. The atmosphere in your home feels lighter. Guests feel more at ease. You feel calmer when stepping inside. It is not that salt has changed your world. It is that you have changed your awareness. The salt only reminds you of what was always available, the power to guard, to protect, and to invite the divine into your space. A doorway is not just wood and hinges. It is the meeting point of two worlds. To place salt there is to honor that space as sacred. It is to recognize that your home is not only a shelter for the body, but also a sanctuary for the spirit. By protecting the threshold, you protect the peace within, and by protecting the peace within, you open yourself to the movement of God in your daily life. If you walk into any room and take a moment to observe carefully, you will notice something very simple. The corners are the quietest places. They are not walked upon. They are not the center of attention. They collect dust, shadows, and sometimes forgotten objects. And in the same way that they collect physical dust, corners also tend to collect invisible energies. They are the silent spaces where the unseen settles. In many traditions, corners are seen as significant. They represent stability, for every structure is held by its corners. They represent stillness, for they are the least disturbed. And they also represent accumulation, because whatever is not moving tends to gather there. If harmony exists in a room, the corners also carry that harmony. But if heaviness, conflict, or sorrow has lingered, the corners are often where such energies stay behind. Placing salt in the corners of a room is not about superstition. It is about salt has the ability to draw out what is stagnant, what is heavy, and what is unnecessary. When you place a small bowl of salt or sprinkle a pinch into the corners, you are allowing it to absorb the unseen dust of energy, just as a broom sweeps away the dust of the floor. It is an act of cleansing, not only physical but energetic. Think about water in nature. When a river flows, the current is fresh and alive. But when water becomes trapped in a still corner, it grows cloudy, heavy, and stagnant. The same is true of energy in your home. Where movement exists, energy is renewed. But in corners where movement is minimal, energy can grow heavy. This heaviness might not be visible to the eye, but it can be felt. Perhaps you enter a room and feel uneasy for no clear reason. Perhaps you notice your thoughts becoming restless or your emotions becoming unsettled in a particular space. Often the cause lies in the unseen accumulation of stagnant energy. By placing salt in the corners, you are not only cleansing the room, you are symbolically reminding yourself of the importance of attention. Corners are easily forgotten because they are not in our direct path. In the same way, there are corners within us, areas of our life and mind that are easy to overlook. Old emotions we have not faced, memories we have not released, thoughts we have pushed aside. They settle quietly, waiting just like dust in the corners of a room. And over time, they begin to affect the atmosphere of our inner world. When you clean the corners of your room with salt, allow this act to remind you of the inner corners of your being. Ask yourself, what have I allowed to gather unnoticed within me? What emotions have I not cleansed? What memories still occupy silent spaces in my heart? By acknowledging them, by breathing into them, by letting them go, you perform the same purification inside that salt performs outside. The physical action becomes a mirror for the inner practice. In monasteries, when monks clean the temple, they pay close attention to the corners. They sweep with care, not rushing, because they know that what is hidden in the corners shapes the energy of the whole space. The teaching is clear. Harmony is not found by only caring for what is visible. True harmony comes from caring for what is often unseen. The same is true in life. It is easy to present a smile, to show kindness, to live in the center of attention, but true peace comes when even the hidden corners of your being are free of heaviness. Placing salt in the corners of your home can be done quietly without ceremony. A small bowl placed with awareness is enough, but as you place it, hold a simple thought. May this corner be cleansed. May stillness here be pure. May peace flow freely in this space. This intention is the key. Without it, salt remains only a substance. With it, salt becomes a vessel of purification, a silent helper of your spiritual journey. Over time, you may notice subtle changes. The air feels lighter. The atmosphere of the room becomes calmer. You may find yourself more at ease when you sit, more focused when you work, more restful when you sleep. These are not coincidences. The outer space influences the inner state. When the corners are cleansed, both physically and energetically, the entire room resonates with harmony. And when the room resonates with harmony, the mind follows. But do not forget, just as salt absorbs what is stagnant, it must also be renewed. After some time, the bowls of salt should be replaced. When you remove the old salt, you can throw it away with gratitude, thanking it silently for absorbing what no longer belonged in your home. This act of replacing teaches another lesson. Purification is not a one-time act, but an ongoing practice. Just as dust will always return, so too will stagnant energy. The path is not about avoiding this truth, but about consistently bringing awareness to it. There is also humility in this practice. Corners are not glamorous. They are not where beauty is displayed or where guests gather. Yet, by caring for them, you acknowledge the importance of what is hidden. You honor the silent spaces, and in honoring them, you also honor the silent parts of yourself. You remind yourself that your journey is not only about the visible achievements, but also about the quiet work of cleansing, of letting go, of tending to the unseen. When salt sits in the corner of your room, it does not make noise, it does not demand recognition. It simply works silently, faithfully, patiently. In this way, it becomes a teacher. It shows you that true strength often lies in stillness, and true transformation often happens quietly. Just as the corners of the room hold the structure of the entire space, the small silent acts of care hold the structure of a peaceful life. And so the next time you walk into a room, take a moment to look at the corners. Notice their stillness. Notice their silence. Place salt there with awareness. Allow it to purify not only the space but also your own understanding. For when the corners are cared for, the whole room breathes with clarity. And when the corners of your heart are cared for, your whole being breathes with peace. In life, we often become absorbed by the visible, by what our eyes can see and our hands can touch. The material world constantly asks for our attention, work, responsibilities, possessions, and goals. But what about the invisible? What about the quiet force that shapes our inner life, that determines whether our days feel heavy or light, whether our hearts feel restless or at peace? The invisible is often forgotten, yet it is where true strength lies. This is why practices with simple objects like salt become so important. Salt itself is ordinary. It is found in every kitchen, every meal, every table. But when placed with awareness, it transforms from being just a substance into a spiritual reminder. It reminds us that life is more than physical comfort. It reminds us that every small act can become sacred if it is carried out with intention. And it reminds us that God's presence is not separate from daily life, but is woven into even the smallest details of our existence. Think about how often we pass through our homes, rushing from room to room, from one task to another. In this rush, we forget. We forget to notice the peace of a quiet moment, the gift of breath, the miracle of being alive. We forget that the divine is not somewhere far away, but right here in this very moment, waiting for us to remember. Salt placed in your home becomes like a bell of mindfulness. It does not ring with sound, but it calls silently. Pause. Remember, God is here. In many spiritual traditions, people use objects to remind themselves of higher truths. A string of beads, a candle, a stone, or even a flower becomes a point of focus, a way to bring the mind back to what truly matters. Salt functions in the same way. Its presence in your home is not about superstition but about attention. Each time your eyes notice it, you are invited to return to awareness, to remember your intention for purity, and to open your heart once more to God's movement in your life. It is not the salt that changes your life. It is the awareness it awakens within you. This is an important truth. Many people search for power outside of themselves, in objects, rituals, or signs. But the greatest power is not in the object. It is in the consciousness with which we approach it. A grain of salt can be meaningless or sacred, depending on the quality of your awareness. The reminder is not outside of you. It is already within you, waiting to be remembered. When you place salt in a room, you can treat it as a symbol. For example, you might say within yourself, as this salt absorbs what is heavy, may I also release what weighs down my heart. In this way, the salt becomes more than a passive substance. It becomes an active mirror for your own practice. Each time you see it, you are reminded of your choice to cleanse your mind of anger, to release resentment, to let go of fear. The physical act becomes an anchor for inner transformation. In monasteries, daily routines are filled with such reminders. A bell rings, not only to signal the time, but to remind monks to breathe. A bow at the entrance of a hall is not simply a gesture, but a reminder of humility. A candle is not just light, but a reminder of wisdom. In the same way, salt in your home can serve as your quiet teacher. Each time you see it, you remember, I choose clarity, I choose peace, I choose to live in the awareness of God's presence. The beauty of such reminders is their simplicity. They do not demand time, they do not require complicated rituals. They simply ask for your awareness. And this is the essence of spiritual practice, to live with awareness in every moment. A reminder, no matter how small, can bring you back when your mind has wandered, when your heart has forgotten, when your life has become too heavy with distraction. Salt teaches another lesson as well. It disappears into food, blending invisibly, yet its presence transforms the taste entirely. In the same way, the divine often works silently in our lives. We may not always see visible signs. We may not always hear clear voices, but the presence is there, shaping, guiding, transforming, just like salt shapes the taste of a meal. Placing salt as a reminder helps us to trust in what we cannot see, to believe in the unseen hand of God moving in our lives. Sometimes when life feels overwhelming, we search for big answers. We want miracles, breakthroughs, sudden change. But often what we truly need is a gentle reminder, a reminder to breathe, to pray, to release, to trust. Salt, sitting quietly in the corner of your home, offers this silent guidance. It says, do not forget. Even now, God is here. Even now, peace is possible. Even now, you can choose to be still. It is also important to renew this reminder. Just as salt must be replaced, after it has absorbed energy, our awareness must also be renewed each day. A single reminder is not enough for a lifetime. Each morning we must return to gratitude. Each evening we must return to reflection. Each moment we must return to awareness. The salt in your home can become a part of this rhythm, a quiet signal to return again and again to what is essential. And so the true power of salt is not in protection or cleansing alone, it is in remembrance. It calls us back to ourselves, back to purity, back to the awareness that God's movement is always present. By honoring such small reminders, we train our mind to remain awake in daily life. And when the mind is awake, the heart opens. When the heart opens, the presence of the divine flows naturally, without effort, like sunlight entering a room through an open window. In the end, the lesson is simple. Do not underestimate the power of small reminders. A grain of salt can hold great meaning if you allow it to. Every time your eyes fall upon it, pause for just a breath and remember, I am here. God is here. Peace is possible. That single moment of remembrance may change the way you carry the entire day. When we speak about salt or about any object used in spiritual practice, we must return again and again to this truth. The object itself does not hold the power. What gives meaning, what awakens transformation, is the faith and the intention with which we use it. A bowl of salt left on the floor without awareness is only salt, but salt placed with reverence, with prayer, with a heart open to the divine, becomes a tool for protection, for purification, and for remembrance. Faith and intention are like the roots of a tree. You may see the branches spreading wide, the leaves shining in the sunlight, the fruits nourishing those who pass by. But none of this is possible without the roots hidden beneath the soil. They are invisible, yet they carry the true strength. In the same way, rituals, practices, and objects are the visible branches. But their strength, their life, their ability to transform comes from the invisible roots of faith and intention. Without roots, a tree falls. Without faith and intention, a practice becomes empty. Consider this. Two people place salt at the entrance of their home. The first person does it casually, without thought, simply because someone told them it might help. The second person does it slowly, with awareness, whispering a prayer, holding the belief that God's light will fill their home. Outwardly, the action is the same. Inwardly, the energy is completely different. The first action creates no shift. The second action opens a doorway for the divine to move. The difference is not salt, it is the heart. Faith is not blind belief. It is not about convincing yourself of something without reason. Faith is trust. Trust in the unseen order of life. Trust that God is present even when you cannot see Him. Trust that every small action, when offered with sincerity, creates ripples beyond what you can imagine. Faith allows you to step into the unknown with courage. It allows you to place a grain of salt with the same seriousness as you would perform a great ceremony, because you trust that God moves through both the small and the great. Intention, on the other hand, is the direction of your heart. It is the seed you plant in every action. Two people can speak the same words, but their intentions may be different. One may speak to heal, another to harm. The sound is the same, but the energy behind it changes everything. In the same way, when you place salt in your home, the physical act is simple, but the seed of intention you plant within that act determines its fruit. If your intention is fear, you invite fear. If your intention is peace, you invite peace. If your intention is love, you invite love. The salt becomes the carrier of that intention. Together, faith and intention transform the ordinary into the sacred. Imagine holding a small bowl of salt to the eye. It is plain, almost insignificant. But when you hold it with faith, you recognize it as part of God's creation formed through earth and sea. When you place it with intention, you direct its purpose to cleanse, to protect, to remind. Suddenly, the small act becomes filled with meaning. The bowl of salt becomes not only an object, but a prayer made visible. This is why in many traditions, simple gestures are considered powerful. Lighting a candle, bowing the head, or offering water may appear small, but with faith and intention, they open hearts, they create connection, they invite the divine. The gesture itself is not the power. The power comes from the invisible roots, the trust in something greater, and the clarity of purpose with which the act is performed. There's also a deeper teaching here. Life itself is shaped by faith and intention. Every action we take, every word we speak, carries within it an intention, whether we are aware of it or not. If we move through life without awareness, our intentions are scattered, our energy unfocused, our results uncertain. But when we live with clarity, When we place intention into even the smallest moments, how we greet others, how we eat, how we breathe, life begins to align. Faith sustains us when the outcome is unseen. Intention directs us toward what matters most. Placing salt in your home is, in this way, training for daily life. It teaches you that no act is too small to carry meaning. It reminds you that every moment is an opportunity to choose your intention. Do you scatter salt absent-mindedly, or do you place it as an offering of peace? Do you walk through your doorway with worry or with trust? Do you sit in your room filled with resentment or with gratitude? These small choices, rooted in faith and intention, shape the entire atmosphere of your life. And so, when you hold salt in your hand, pause, close your eyes, whisper a prayer, plant your intention like a seed. May this salt remind me of purity. May it guard my home. May it open the way for God's blessings to enter freely. Then place it with faith, trusting that even if you cannot see the movement, the divine is working silently, just as salt works silently in food to bring flavor. In time, you will notice the difference. Your home will feel lighter. Your heart will feel calmer. Your mind will feel clearer. This is not because salt is magic, but because you are living with greater awareness. You are aligning your actions with your faith. You are directing your life with intention. You are remembering that God moves not only in extraordinary miracles, but also in the quiet choices of everyday life. In the end, salt is only a mirror. It reflects back to you the quality of your own heart. With no faith and no intention, it remains plain. With faith and intention, it becomes sacred. The true transformation lies not in the salt, but in you. And so the teaching is simple. Do not seek power in objects alone. Seek it in the roots, the faith that sustains you and the intention that guides you. For when faith and intention meet, even the smallest act becomes a prayer. Even the simplest ritual becomes divine, and even a grain of salt becomes a doorway for God to move in your life.